Mark.
Oh, good. Hey, yesterday,
You a Bengals fan?
you wouldn't be.
It's a free sweatshirt?
I bought this playoff run for you. Yeah, how impressed. But back to the top. Norman went to 17 rebounds yesterday. Kind of, got overlooked a little bit, at least during your press conference. Looking at the tape, what kind of jumped out to you about him in that aspect of his play?
Well, I think you've seen his growth throughout the year. Just in terms of how he's stronger, more confident. And 17 caught me by surprise too. I didn't realize it was that many. But no, I think it's just he has the opportunity or the ability to be a really good rebounder on both ends because size, athleticism, nose for the ball. He's got some toughness to him. Just as he continues to mature and get stronger, it should become, I think, more not 17 every night, but more of the norm and not the exception of him getting double figures on that category quite often.
Right, I know it's a pretty quick turnaround, but in some of the early prep, what just kind of stood out about maybe some of the physicality and urgency that the Gophers seem to play with even kind of during an up and down season?
Yeah, I mean, they've been competitive. I think they're 7-6 since we played them. There's been a little bit of a positional shift in terms of their lineup. They got Abakali playing point now a little bit more. So, and then they've used Rigsby here recently off the bench, and he obviously shot it really well at Nebraska. So we understand, where we're at, and it doesn't matter where we go, who we play. Even here, the league is extremely competitive, and they've done that. They played really well. Let the lead slip away at Nebraska's Saturday, and then we're able to make a couple plays down the stretch to win it. And obviously, Rigsby hitting the three in transition was big for him. But Garcia is one of the lead scorers in our league, and Patterson and Mike Mitchell in the backcourt. Frank Mitchell's given him some good minutes too. He's been really physical, done a good job on the glass. So obviously, go on the road into a hostile environment, border rival, so to speak. So we expect, they've played well, even though they haven't. There's not many games that have gotten away from them. They've been able to compete with everybody. They won at UCLA and USC here 10 days ago, so they're doing some good things.
Getting a little ahead of things, but you're going to have your senior class honored on Saturday. You got a bunch of guys that decided to spend their whole careers here, transfers that been here for 3 years. Can you kind of quantify what this group means to you, just given that there's probably not going to be a lot of large senior classes like that in the future that have stuck together for so long?
Yeah, I think you're just the times we're in and how this landscape has evolved. You're exactly right. You're probably not going to see somebody spend their whole career at one place or even be there for 3 or 4 years. I don't know, Gilmore's in his 5th, but I think we all appreciate or should appreciate what the commitment all of them have made, whether it's been Steve and Gilly, the 5 years, Max and Kamari with 3 or 4, and then obviously John Tange with 1, and Marcus Dover with 4. I think they've all been positive contributors, regardless of the time, the length of time they've been here. And like I said, I thought last year when we were going to see the tail end with the Tyler Wall going out after 4 years or 5 years. We're in the COVID year too, so these guys are also using the COVID year, but it's the landscape we're in, and I think you just learn to appreciate every year for what it is and the commitment these guys make to it. And those guys, those 6, whether it's been John that's been here, Tanje's just been here a few months, or I said the older guys that have been here 4 or 5 years, they've been here for the right reasons, and I think they've all understood what this place represents and how they want to represent this place, and they've all done a really good job of it. Irregardless of what their role has been, they've all been really good teammates and really good in the locker room. And from a coach's standpoint, that's when you have really good people in your locker room, that gives you a chance to have success. And they've been able to be a part of a lot of success.
2 of those guys, Kamari and Max, obviously coming out of the same transfer class. terms of leaders that they become and the voices that they can be, did you know that that's what you were bringing in, that they'd have that skill that they could eventually go into?
I thought Klesmit had that earlier, and I noticed that earlier than what I did with Kamari, and I think it probably took. They were both obviously on a little different tracks in terms of getting themselves established and into a rotation and so forth. But I think they both have, in their own ways, become very good leaders. Obviously Kamari, I think, has done a really good job for us this year and has embraced his role and has thrived in his role. And a big piece of that role is his leadership that he provides. So everybody, wears that leadership hat in different ways, and sometimes it comes at different times. But both those guys have done a really good job, and Gilmore as well. Gilmore is definitely a voice in that locker room that everybody listens to. So when you have that, like I said, that player-led group, that gives you a chance to touch higher points than if it's a coach-led team, because that's the unification and the bond and the ownership that those guys in that locker room take. They can push it farther than what a coach can.
Does it mean anything that those guys are the local kids?
Well, I think that's always, the loyalty to in-state schools it's been dissipating for the better part of 20 years. I've seen that trend happen everywhere, just because our world has expanded or shrunk. I don't know which way you want to look at it. But when you have two guys that didn't have the opportunity to come here out of high school because they just weren't at this level or ready for this level, to be able to have a chance to come back and appreciate that and really, I remember back to when NIL became a thing, and I sat down with Klesmit, and this was all starting 2-3 years ago. And he said, "Coach, man, you just gave me an opportunity to wear the jersey. That's enough." And I wanted to get up and hug him and kiss him, but that how much it meant for him to come back and be here at home, and doesn't have the same meaning for everybody. And quite frankly, nationally, that is becoming less and less of a thing. And that started long before the forum. That we've just seen that just because of how society, think about it, my kids travel way more than I did, right? So their allegiance to home, so to speak, is not the same because the world has changed.
With Carter, obviously you're glad he came back, but were you a little surprised that he's kind of stuck around as opposed to maybe seeking an opportunity to maybe have a larger role or have a more solidified scholarship status?
No, because I think I've always understood his love for this place and his roots in this program or in our coaching tree, so to speak, because it's not just here, it's to Platteville, back to Platteville with both Brian and Stephanie. So I'm not surprised by that loyalty because quite frankly, he was raised in that. So, he was doing partner passing when he was 4 years old. So he was at, Pioneer games and not watching his dad or his mom, but he understood. He understood the history of it, and he really, like I said, he was part of that family that came through. So with Brian playing for Bo and the history of back to Platteville, so there was a definite tight connection just to the whole evolution of Platteville to Milwaukee to here, and then him obviously growing up not too far away in Heartland. So it's those are the homegrown ones that really, I think, have that attachment. We talk about the loyalty or I wouldn't say loyalty, there's the allegiance to, I think the allegiance for him was going back to his mom and dad's experience, and we were all students together in Platteville at the same time a couple of years ago.
One of the strengths of this program over decades now has been that when a guy leaves, NBA graduates, whatever, there's always someone there to kind of step into that role. And is Kamari a pretty good example of that? Because I don't know how much he's playing this year, if Chucky's still around, but he's pretty well expanded and he's taking advantage of.
Yeah, I think the role has expanded, and I think his opportunities are more, but he's also, I think, reached a higher level where regardless of who was going to be here, he was going to have a role. And I think that part of his success is him embracing that role and really thriving in that role. It's like I said, he had yesterday started for us. He needed a couple months ago, the last time we played Minnesota. So he's, regardless of whether he starts or whether he comes off the bench, his embracing of that role is been a real part of his success. He's thrived in that because he's embraced it. He hasn't fought it. He hasn't. I think he just said he excels in it because he's happy about it. And when you're happy about it, you have a tendency to do better, right? Than if you're looking for a reason why you should have a different role. He's really thrived in that, and his teammates appreciate and understand that too, and recognize that. And maybe he doesn't start every game for us, but his voice and his leadership and his juice he's given us off the bench is noticeable. I mean, obviously you and the public see it, but his teammates all recognize it first, and that's the important thing, that he's established that with his team, and that allows him to really thrive.
There were obviously a lot of other factors last year, but with Kamari and kind of the games that he missed and the way that he came back from it, did that kind of stretch, I guess, redefine, I guess, what you kind of thought about what his value could be to the game, and like how he could kind of impact success?
Yeah, I don't think I needed that moment to redefine what he could be. I think it showed everybody on the outside, because even though statistically his numbers maybe didn't pop off the page, he was an important piece, an important cog in that wheel. And we were, prior to him getting hurt and prior to Blackwell, didn't miss as many games, but got hurt relatively at the same time. We could keep traction for a little bit, but then eventually that missing piece or missing pieces started to impact us. And so yes, that's I think I thought that was going to happen at some point, that him missing that much time was going to hurt us, just because he brought exactly what that team needed in that role, and that juice off the bench, that 1 or 2 or 3 game-changing plays a game that could spark us and get us over the hump. And like I said, a team can survive that in the short term, but over the long term, it eventually starts to catch you. And that's, you go back to where we hit the skids last year, it directly aligns with when those guys got hurt. So that's always the key, is to try to keep guys healthy. If you do get banged up, try to get them back, as quick as you can. So yeah, I think it just proved to everybody on the outside how valuable he was. It was way more than just how many, ever 2 points a game, or 8 minutes a game, or 12 minutes a game, whatever it was. The value and the impact, because it was such an important piece of that whole puzzle.
Do you think it was valuable for him to see that, though?
I think he knew it. I mean, his first game back, right? Rutgers here, right? I mean, we have to rally in that one, and he makes some big plays to help us get back and finish out that one. So I don't think there's never been, I wouldn't say Kamari's ever lacked confidence. He's always been very confident, always smiling, and the glass is always half full with him. It's never half empty. So those are good qualities to have that'll serve him well long after his basketball career is done.
When it comes to shooting, I know yesterday you said that you didn't believe that there was any correlation between yesterday's shooting performance and the Oregon shooting performance. I mean, I don't know if you still believe that, but do you think that there's anything that you attribute to bad performances within such a close range?
No, I think totally different defensive styles, totally different philosophies of how they might not be able to be further from being similar in terms of how they play. Going through yesterday's film again a couple times, and again this morning, 32 threes, 26 of them I thought were good, 6 were not. You're not going to bat 1,000 in that when I can't adjudicate that on the team. They got to make those decisions. But 26 of the 32 I thought were good. We're some a little bit further out. I told the team that's your decision as a player, whether you feel were you a little bit further out. Could you have? There was a lot of woulda, couldas, but you can still survive those games against that level of a team in that environment if instead of having 9 turnovers we have 5, right? Or instead of getting 13 offensive rebounds we give up 9. So the margin for error for both teams, I mean, in that highly of a contested game, just a matter of where there was going to be slippage. And obviously you go 10 for 32, where we're talking about a completely different result. So I'm not gonna be one to micromanage when we want them to shoot. And you know, I remember this is going back 20 plus years, because Kirk was playing and had an awesome shooting night, went bananas. Everybody loved him, right? Next night out goes like 1 for 10 from 3. And I remember Bo saying in the press conference, everybody loved him and hugged him 4 days ago, and went, 9 for 12. You gotta love them the same when they went 1 for 10, right? So, we've been games where we make 21, right? If you have a game where you make 5, are they good looks? Are they what you want? Are you staying within what you're doing? So I thought we played well enough to win, other than making some shots. And then if you don't make shots, you gotta be really airtight in a couple of those other areas. So from a comparative standpoint, Oregon to Michigan State, completely different how they play ball screens, completely different how they play gaps, completely different how they play in the post. They're two different animals in terms of how they play.
From a defensive standpoint, I think your efficiency might have gotten better after.
We did. Yeah, we jumped.
And I guess I'm just wondering, it kind of gets into the idea of, do you think we actually maybe got better defensively despite the result?
We've been getting better defensively. I think we've been getting better. I think really since the last really analytically bad defensive game we've had was at UCLA, where we were lights out offensively too. But that was just one of those where it was a shootout. But no, we've been getting better defensively. We jumped analytically, or the national stuff we jumped. And but yeah, we held them under a point per possession. You're doing that to a top 10 team on the road. You gotta make some shots, right? You gotta score a little bit.
But I also assume it's got to be encouraging. Max, you didn't have Max.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, Jay, you didn't play as much. I think before you kind of talked about trying to get to that 25.
Yeah, we're at 31.
Yes.
Yeah, we're at 31 as a little
Yeah.
while ago I checked.
So I guess I'm just wondering what areas do you think you need to tighten up to kind of get to where you really want to be?
Yeah, well, we had 3 possessions there at the end where we kind of had ball screen defense breakdowns is the word I'll use, because I'm not going to use the word I use with the team. Where we were hedging and the other big was too high, and we were soft hedging and the other big was too low. And we had 3 possessions there where we got out of sync, and that's when Cooper, or whoever, I think it was Cooper, got loose on some ball screen rolls. So we didn't have the floor balance behind it, what we were doing within the ball screen. If you're going to shock and hedge, you got to have a rim protector, you got to have that backside loaded, and we were too spread out on the backside. So those are just simple breakdowns, that not simple, but easy things to fix. Because we were changing what we were doing based on what they were doing, because they wanted us out. Like, we want teams to sometimes come out and get extended a little bit, and we'll counter you behind it. So, but I think we've gotten better. Aside from those 3, I thought we've gotten better in those situations in ball screen defense, where our bigs have gotten more consistent in their shocking, their hedging. We've gotten better at bumping rollers and clogging the paint, forcing throwbacks and playing closeouts from there. So that's, a couple things were, some defensive rebounding. Kohler made the difference in the game there, and he outworked us on a couple possessions. I think he had 2 or 3 in a row, and in the first half they got a 3 out of it. Just things that we have to, has nothing to do usually with technique or anything. It's just his desire to go get the ball was better than the guys that we had in with him at that time.
How much pride is there in sweeping a border battle season series? And just how much does that mean to you? in the grand scheme of all this?
I think it's big picture. You look, obviously it's important because it's our next game, but yeah, it is. It's border state. You know, we've recruited that area really well. That area's been really good to us. We've got really good players from there. It's important in terms of, you know, Big Ten tournament seeding. It's important in terms of NCAA tournament seeding. You know, if we can, you know, keep or get to that 2 line. You know, it's important for us a Big Ten tournament to get the double bye if you can. And quite frankly, you boil it down to it's your next game and you're competitive and you want to win, right? And then the other stuff that can happen from that is a byproduct of really, you know, doing good things on Wednesday night.
Very good with Coach.